So today we are very happy to have, we invited somebody from Australia, Melbourne, to come to Hong Kong, Mr. Stuart Hall. Stu is also a lawyer before he joined Control Risk. Control Risk has been helping Law Society, in particular PMC and members in general, how to control technology risk. So this is the third time we have invited Control Risk to support us. Today, Stu is a principal based in Melbourne, as I said. His expertise, of course, in technology and risk. So before joining, he has spent 25 years in public practice or in other area in relation to law, and is currently president for the Association for Certified E-Discovery Specialist ANZ chapter. So he knows about law, unlike somebody who doesn't know law. This guy is a lawyer. So of course, GN also come to support us. GN is based in Hong Kong. So today we are very happy. So just listen to them, what kind of technology they can offer to us. And then if you have any questions, just stay behind after the section and ask him. So without further ado, Mr. Hall. Yeah.
Thanks, Philip, and great to be here. Thanks to Wendy and the whole Law Society for having us today. It's great to be back in Hong Kong. I've missed seeing you guys. You've turned on some beautiful weather for me, so it's really nice to be here. And again, excited to be chatting to you today about how we can use technology and AI in a meaningful way, and hopefully give you some practical steps that you can take back. Quick sort of slide on me. I won't dwell on this, but just to give you a sense, I've worked inside of several law firms over the years, working on technology during that process as well. And we support clients across a raft of different things, from just kind of vanilla sort of e-discovery and disputes and litigation, et cetera, into more sort of risks around data breach, et cetera, and some of the things that Philip's alluded to earlier as well. We get heavily involved in investigations, regulatory response, and compliance as well. So the reason I think that's helpful is I'm going to talk about using technology in a broader sense than just something that's kind of vertical specific. And so I'm hopeful that no matter what part of the law you practice in, there'll be some relevance for you in terms of what we touch on today. Agenda, a few bits. I'm going to cover really the problem state, right? The challenge for all of us that we're all facing, which is just that there are many different factors and challenges that exist globally, and also some specific ones that exist locally around how we go about running our practices and how we're succeeding or not succeeding, as may be the case. I'm going to talk a little bit about what legal data intelligence is, how it might be applicable, talk about some of the use cases that exist out there, and then talk about how you might apply that in a context more specific to the way you run your practice, and compare it to more traditional approaches to doing that. And then the last bit, and it's a small step, but it's just how to actually go back to your desk after you finish today and sitting and enjoying a coffee, and how you can actually go about implementing some minor steps as well that you can actually take. So this is not new for lots of people, but I think it's really important to delve a little bit deeply into the problem state. So these are just a few of the challenges. This is an exhaustive list, but I want to touch on a few of them here. So the way that you manage data is a big part of what's changing and a challenge that exists globally. There's scaling issues as it relates to the way that you run law firms. So how do we manage that transition and change as we become smaller or we become bigger along the way? There's complexity in the way that we're operating, the complexity around the delivery of legal services, what's considered part of your remit and expectations of clients as well. And as always, the dollar is a really important part of what we all do. We're constrained by price pressures. We've got several different factors, macro factors that are global in nature, and some of which are local in terms of the challenges that exist too. The first one I want to touch on is just data management. This is probably a little bit near and dear to my heart, so I've gone a few layers into this as well. But one of the things that we're all experiencing is a deluge of information. So we are now in the information age experiencing unprecedented levels and volumes of information that we have to manage. That's both structured, and what I mean by structured is sort of databases and things that are in a structured form, et cetera, like a spreadsheet, and unstructured data where we're just getting emails or different variety of things all along the way. The obligations for managing this information from both privacy and data retention continue to increase and change. They're always evolving as well. And along with a growing array of new modern data types. And I use that term modern data types, you might have heard of emerging data types as well. But this idea of we get files that what used to be sort of discoverable or relevant, which were emails or Word documents or maybe hard copy. And now we're starting to move into a world in which other types of files are becoming relevant as well. Maybe chat, might be WeChat, might be WhatsApp. You might be looking at a lot of contracts that are verbally agreed and listening to audio as part of that as well. They present unique challenges as well. I mentioned about the ever-growing size, so constantly having to scale. So we back in the day, we'd have a disk or a hard drive or a server, and that was always enough. It seemed like we always had enough space, and it was an endless amount of space. And now we could download 3 movies, and all of a sudden our space is filled up, and we no longer have the available infrastructure we need to support projects. AI use. Philip's hit on it earlier. I think it's a really important point. You know, how can we use it? What options are available to us? Is it a good thing? Is it a bad thing? What are the ways that we can mitigate and manage those as well? And last but not least is privacy. There continues to be a growing obligation around people's personal information, and it's changing as we go. Just recently, there's been several laws enacted around the globe that are starting to impact, and I have no doubt that there'll be more that will come as well as we start to understand the problem more meaningfully. Security. I think Philip did an excellent job of sort of the precursor of some of the things that we wanted to touch on today, but protecting client data and firm data is critical, right? It's not just one of those things where it's a nice to have, it's essential to the way we run our businesses. You know, cyber threats aren't just something that someone else experiences somewhere else in the world, they are relevant to all of us. If you haven't had a phishing email sent to you, I'd be surprised. And a phishing email is those things that suck you in and get you to do something or potentially expose some credentials. We're seeing that all the time. So protecting information is not just key from a compliance perspective, but it's reputational. This affects your brand. This affects the way that people perceive you. If you're managing the most sensitive information as a law firm and the documents that nobody else wants to see that are sensitive to a litigation, they need to be secured. You know, it's really critical that you do something with that information. So considerations around, you might have heard of two-factor authentication, but this ability to be able to secure it in a more meaningful way than just a password. Having multiple ways to make sure and verify that it's you, not just anybody who could potentially have just grabbed or hacked your email or similar. Security training. And what I mean by that is awareness and training is ongoing. We need to practice and simulate phishing. We need to understand that landscape and that threat landscape that comes up for all of us. Our privacy obligations. What are we going to do to protect that information? We've got lots of sensitive data that we've got in play as well, and how are we going to manage that? And the last bit is just that threat protection and analysis, because if we're not doing that as well from a security standpoint, we're leaving ourselves vulnerable and at risk. And that's hard when you're a small group, right? That becomes increasingly challenging as to how to actually do that and do that well. Data silos. So whether you're an organisation of size where you might have merged or worked with another company, et cetera, and expanded or grown, or it could be that there's just different practice groups that operate differently. There are challenges to do with the way that we manage our information across our practices. We can find that one group is very successful with using one piece of technology and another group doesn't have any technology to support them as well. So there can be challenges with cross-collaboration in terms of what's going on. You might be storing a lot of redundant information. If you don't have a plan for information governance and data remediation, you might find yourself with a lot of old information that you don't want, which if you think about the potential for breach and for threats that come up, that now you've got a broader expansion of those issues. Some of you might have heard of the Optus data breach in Australia and the impact that had. The interesting thing that happened for them was not only were their current customers affected and obviously their employees, but they'd been keeping a lot of information and not getting rid of stuff and not deleting it, defensively deleting files along the way. So they had old customer data, people who were no longer their customers, that were exposed as well. So by keeping that information, you could be exposing yourself to a bigger problem than you already got as well. cost fragmentation. And what I mean by that is that, paying for it in one spot and not paying for it holistically and trying to leverage some scale on those things can create issues down the way. And the last bit on this for me is just single-use solutions. So I mentioned the examples of, you might have some piece of technology that works just for a small need in corporate or a small need in IP, etc. Those things can be good, but they only serve a small fragment of the users, and you're not solving a broader technology issue that can serve more people and constituents inside of an organisation as well. Last one I want to touch on with data management is just integration of technology. So when and everybody suffers from this challenge, right? When we see new technology, we're confronted with a change and pain involved in using that, right? And so if we want it to be successful, there's costs involved in integrating that into our practice. We need to train people. We need to monitor how they're using it. We need to make sure that they're having successes. If they're not having successes, we need to spend some time to help them to retrain and to get the best out of the product. And so integrating parts like AI, it's not easy. Automation, it's not a straightforward process. If there's a new application that you want to use, how are you going to roll that out and do that? There's a training cost and impost and effort involved in it. And also that cost of single-use solutions. So if everybody's buying technology for small uses, again, it may not be solving a bigger issue and it may not be benefiting the broader group. Growth and scale issues. So I think this has relevance globally, but also locally too, and I'll come on to the local point in a bit more detail. But when you're thinking about how to scale non-fee earning functions, IT, HR and finance, that can be really challenging, right? Because they are a blessing in terms of what they deliver for your business, but they are a drag as well in terms of what they provide because they are not generating fees and revenue as part of that. So if you're a small group, that becomes increasingly hard. So maintaining a consistent environment and technology layer, it's difficult, right? And so finding the right solution and bedding that down can be hard. If you're building new practice groups, or it might be new territories or locations on the map as well, they can be hard to manage culturally, as well as evolving your go-to-market along the way. So if you want to deliver success in each location, you might actually need to have a different approach as well. It's important for what I do in my business at Control Risk. We have to have different approaches in different markets in terms of how we approach things. And just that last bit of just managing data securely and protecting information is key to that too. This is probably near and dear to things that you guys experience, but complexity around the delivery of legal services. So clients expect more. They expect you to be specialists, to know the intimate detail about lots of things around key areas of law, and also the fact that law is evolving so rapidly too. Whilst also having a really deep team, you need to have lots of people to be able to do that stuff and have that depth. So there's a real challenge in terms of being able to do that well. Innovation is now an expected and essential part of delivery of legal services. And so if you want to stay ahead of the pack and compete, it's really critical that that's something that you build into the way that you go about it. And that means challenging the norm of what you do day to day and thinking about is there a better way? That's actually a really hard thing to do as humans. We like getting comfortable, and when we get comfortable, we find a groove with productivity. But at the same time, if we're not innovating, we may find ourselves evolved out of a process as well. Also, the size and complexity of projects is changing. So that means that different tool sets are being brought to bear. So for lots of you guys, there's a risk and a project management sort of angle that comes into doing things. And sometimes that can almost be more important than some of the legal issues at play. You're actually project managers almost first in some cases, and not necessarily lawyers in the same way that you're used to being. There's expectations around pricing and maybe the way that you've done it. You maybe need to do it differently, and success and contingency and all sorts of different ways about approaching pricing. And if there's one thing which is winning the business, is also how to deliver profitability and managing those expectations at the same time. And I'm sure it's near and dear to all the managing partners. Profitability is important. It keeps us all viable. It keeps us all in jobs. Price pressures are everywhere, but there are several here that I just want to touch on. So wages continue to increase year over year, and specialist skills are expected as part of that. So it's not something where, in the past where people are sort of interchangeable in the same way. They're becoming more specialised in terms of their need and their knowledge, and therefore demanding more salary as part of that. Corporations' demands only increase, and so they want you to be strategic business advisors, not just lawyers, which it's not fair. We went, we studied law so we could practice law, not to become project managers or technologists, right? And so there's an expectation of an increased level of skills around that too. And also just global headwinds around the economics and general political uncertainty. They're impacting clients. Clients are getting jittery around certain areas, right? Are we going to procure that thing and do some M&A activity? Are we going to proceed with this litigation? Let's wait, let's hold. Let's hold back on this. And that kind of hesitancy is coupled with an increase in competition where new entrants come to the market and then they drive the price down in order to win that business. So there's a lot of pain that law firms are experiencing. And again, I think, locally, there's also some uniqueness as well that you guys are facing too. And that kind of takes me to the next point, just around challenges that you guys experience locally that are a little more near and dearer to you. Regional nuances and political challenges, growth and scale and technology and legal tech. So there's some overlap here, but there's some specifics that I want to touch on too. Guys have to work in a more complex system than lots of people, right? And that really is to do with managing, cross-border disputes generally, and those layers that wrap around that. Some of them are operational, and you guys are familiar with it, of state secret review, you're managing personal information, etc. along the way, cross-border transfers. So it makes for complexity in what's already a complex kind of place in terms of what you're operating on. The geopolitical situation evolves like daily. I haven't looked at the news this morning. I don't want to look at the news this morning. It kind of concerns me every day. But again, I think that the issue of how this impacts markets and how this plays out locally, none more so than here. You guys are right at that kind of apex of that stuff by virtue of sitting in the middle between sort of some aspects of Western and some aspects of your relationship to China. So it's tough. Global US and UK law firms continue to evaluate whether they want to exist and function in this market, and they're balancing that opportunity at play. I think there's a pendulum swing. It swung one way, and I think it's swinging positively back towards people coming back to Hong Kong too. So it's sometimes a headwind, but sometimes it's a tailwind too in terms of the relationship that exists here. Growth and scale. I love spending time in Hong Kong, but one of the things that I notice is, I just got a coffee the other week, and the cost of things increases.
But you earn more in Hong Kong.
We earn more in Hong Kong. It's exactly right. Philip's spot on. And so, it is an expensive place to operate. You guys are one of the most expensive places on the planet to operate. It's an awesome place to be, which is why you're all here, right? But growing a business is tough. Costs of real estate, staff and infrastructure, it's not an easy place to run, right? There's an expectation as well of multilingual. I say bilingual. I'd say multilingual because we've got several languages in play that you guys are typically dealing with, and so you need to be experts in managing litigation, cross-border work, etc. And that means that fight for talent. So the talent that's in this room, it's all hard fought. You guys are super good at what you do, but you're desirable in terms of the skills that you bring to the table. And then it's hard to find people just like you as well. There's challenges to many partnerships being small or to mid-size. And so some of the opportunities that come from buying things at scale and leveraging those economics as well get a little bit harder if you're a smaller group. And so absorbing, non-fee earning as well is difficult. And again, something that is very sharply in focus here. Technology integration. So this one, again, this is important to me, but adoption of technology in Hong Kong is less common compared to other common law jurisdictions. So there tends to be a reliance on more manual processes and workflows, more like tried and true, right? And, there's nothing wrong with that, but I think there's a challenge and an opportunity here to level up in terms of what we're doing there. Data privacy, security, result in a lot of on-premise and infrastructure deployments. There's sensitivity and fear about some aspects of the cloud. And whilst I think that people worry about the cloud, it actually creates more attack vectors and opportunities for cyber threat and security to actually attack you guys. It might be that you've got it sitting in a cupboard in a room, but in that scenario, there's opportunity for that to be physically attacked or to be destroyed. So there's other issues that can come about that are probably more likely than even a cyber threat in some of those as well. Multilingual considerations can present challenges in terms of technology. Some technology offerings aren't well suited for dealing with Asian language. And that's problematic, right? So we want to use all the smart stuff, but we're not getting the best out of our technology providers as well. So this is the problem state, right? I've spent a decent amount of time articulating what that is, but that's the case for change, right? And so for me, there's a lot of things that overlap in terms of what's going on here. We've got competition. We've got an increased need for competition and increased price pressures that are coming up. We've got technology and data that are playing out in several ways in terms of the way we run our businesses. We've got our security and our brand that we're worried about as well. And last, and certainly not but least, we've got client expectations that are constantly expanding and we're expected to know more along the way. So for me, this sort of paragraph sort of encapsulates really what I think we need to be doing and thinking about, which is, I'll read it out. The challenges of running a law firm, especially in managing data, operating at scale, and navigating complexity, require innovative solutions. Law firms must adopt tech-enabled strategies to remain competitive, whilst at the same time safeguarding data, maintaining client trust, and brand reputation. Right? A lot wrapped up in that paragraph. But again, I think it demonstrates the need for us considering something different and thinking about how we run things. And this is where legal data intelligence steps in. So it's a long wind up, guys, but we're now starting to hit. But here's some of the potential opportunity and solution as well. So for those of you that haven't heard of legal data intelligence, I'll run through it a little bit. So legal data intelligence they're not a consulting company. There's not a product-based offering. They don't sell anything. I operate in, Philip mentioned earlier, I'm the president of ACEDS, which is an education company. I make no money from it. It's a shame. I wish I did. But at the same time, it's all about educating, providing resources for groups as well, people like yourselves, to empower legal professionals to better leverage data and technology. And so that's the purpose of why they exist. So there's no sales pitch to LDI, but it's trying to get you to think a bit differently, using people that have had this experience and global technology leaders to bridge industry gaps. Create a framework for thinking about how you can apply and use technology no matter what use case you're operating in. Some of you might be familiar with some different sort of, let's call it industry standards that are out there. It's not designed to sort of supplant those and replace those, but to work in concert with those. So I've just listed a few here, some of those you may have heard of, but EDRM and CLOC, NIST and ISO. Again, these are really useful standards that exist and are helpful to guide the way that you do it. But this is a broader framework for engagement of technology. And again, I think it's been sorely needed. So interesting quote here from a partner from Perkins Coie. And this is, I think, is at the crux of what legal data intelligence is all about. We collect and review electronic information. We analyse it, we interrogate it, we understand, and we provide legal advice back to our clients. This workflow is the same, no matter whether it's litigation, due diligence, audit, or compliance. The legal aspects are different, but the technology aspect may not be different. We're trying to sort wheat from chaff, and that really is at the principle of what LDI is all about. So these are the 4 principles, and I'll run through them at a little bit of depth. But the first bit is that every sort of engagement, legal engagement, contains a data challenge. And what I mean by that is you've got to scope something. You've got to get some information. You've got to organise that to prepare whatever it is that you're preparing for your client. And so that can be tough. There's an abundance and a variety of data that's going to affect you as well. So that area is really core to what LDI is about. All legal data challenges are rooted in the same problem. You must sort out or filter, for want of a better term, sensitive and useful and necessary information, the sun, from the massive amount of redundant, obsolete and trivial, the rot. The point here is that no matter what you're trying to achieve, whether it's finding a smoking gun, whether it's finding a clause that's sensitive in a particular contract, whether it's dealing with some personal information that you need to mask or remove from a particular document, it's all the same. We're trying to find something important here, and we're trying to sort that from things that are unimportant. And so this is the bit here, and this is why I think it's great that we've got a room of practitioners that are across the spectrum of areas that we practice in, right? LDI demands thinking bigger. So if today we're solving just for our own groups or our own departments, this is a way to think a little bit more holistically about how we can solve a bigger challenge, which is we're all dealing with lots of information and we've got to get better. And this is the thing I hope that you guys take from this bit, but just legal data intelligence is going to allow you guys to do what you do best, do the law and provide greater value for your customers, not be bogged down in the operational and the logistics of managing these projects. Getting a bit above that, right? Getting into the actual, what are the issues at play, and doing the things that you guys were trained to do, that you're smart at doing. And this is providing a layer and a framework to do that. This is the website. I just thought it was helpful to kind of, ground it. You can go have a peek at this yourself as well, but it breaks it down into a few different categories. And you can see here a specific use case. And in this case, we've got disputes and investigations, we've got corporate, data protection and compliance. This is not exhaustive. This is not done. This is an organic site. It will continue to evolve as more use cases become relevant. There's examples in here that aren't relevant. I'll give you one that's like data subject access requests are things that happen in the UK, not so relevant for us. But again, there are several needs and uses as well that aren't listed here, which I would say over time and based upon my feedback, your feedback, will continue to evolve as we go. But the importance here is to think about there's a lot of different things that are covered off here that you might not be thinking about using and employing technology for as well. I'll just pick one and we'll just sort of unpack it a little bit. So internal investigations, this is one of the use cases that was listed. So if we have a little look at that, we can see a few things here. We can see the use case described specifically. We can get into when it was last updated. So we can see it's quite dynamic, right? So this happened, what was it, just a little over a month ago that there was an update on this particular use case. Someone's done something, made some changes, made some tweaks. You'll also see over here the various stages that make it up. There's some commonality between the stages, no matter what part of that you're operating in, whether you're corporate or disputes and etc. There's some commonality to the way that these stages are described. So it helps create a unilateral framework for talking about the use of technology. Am I using it in the initiate? Am I using it in the investigate phase? What am I trying to do along the way? Examples of those use cases actually in practice. So you can see like, what do I mean by an internal investigation? Here's some examples of those actually playing out. And then the last bit we'll just examine is the details. And you can see here, this is just getting into the weeds of what we're trying to do at that part in the phase, in this identified data phase, more specifically. You can see here some specifics about how technology can assist, and these are just suggestions on flows that you could potentially be employing to improve that process. And on the right here, there's some notes, just some mitigating things to think about. There may be some challenges to employing things in this particular way. Determine if it's appropriate to use it in this particular context. So again, it's a framework for deploying and using technology and deciding about how you can improve your practice. So I guess when we started the conversation and the bit that I said I would do, which is really talk about how it can supercharge and improve your practice. So if we've laid out the framework for that, we've talked about the challenges, what are the ways that it's going to help solve? The first bit is doing more with less and amplifying your efforts. It's a simple statement, but it means a lot, which is if, for example, I'll use a document review as an example. If I can use technology and some form of analytics or AI, I can do that task faster. I can amplify my effort. I can review a small number of documents and then have it amplify out onto a larger population of documents. I can do that in a meaningful way, and that will allow me to get better bang for buck and get through a job faster, get through a job more efficiently as well. I can use LDI as a strategy to win. Instead of sort of thinking about how many man hours we're going to have to pitch for a job, we can think about the deployment of technology as an avenue to drive engagement and wins as well, wins for our business. If we deploy technology in this way, we may be able to win business that we probably ordinarily wouldn't have, right? And that goes into this bit of taking on more and larger engagements. I know there'll be people in this room that will be constrained by the logistics and the size of their organisation. I can't take that on. It's too big for me. It's too intense for the size of organisation that I am. Again, you can amplify this effort. If you look at an example, and I worked on several cases where you might have 20 lawyers that are engaged for a large firm and doing some form of document review. Got 100,000 documents to review. It's the same as one person reviewing 5,000 documents. But if you deploy technology in those cases as well, you can swing. You can swing big, and you can achieve meaningful results for your clients. near and dearer to managing partners and as well, improving profitability, right? So if we are not having, all these manual processes in that way, we've got an opportunity to improve profitability, because when we introduce humans on a lot of the manual processes, that is low margin. It is incredibly low margin work. So thinking about ways that technology can be used. And doesn't mean that you need to just always pass it through. We see lots of groups globally, and in some cases locally, they mark up that service as part of it. They make it a profit centre as part of the work that they do as well when they're engaging in using technology. Because you guys need to manage the relationship. You need to manage the engagement with a third party if you're using that too. Touched on this before, but allowing lawyers to focus on the law and not the logistics, not the operational concerns of doing things. I love this one because, again, it's what so many of us got into the law to do, is to focus on what you care about most. Helping, growing and retaining staff. So if anyone's worked on a large discovery or a large investigation and a review exercise, it can be pretty daunting. It can be pretty painful. So the work itself isn't enjoyable for people, and we lose people through that process. And so retention in law is a challenge. So if we can find novel uses and being able to use AI and technology, we're going to keep that next generation of lawyers excited and engaged and in the practice. And that's super important, right? We want them to take over and do the things that we're doing in the future. We want a succession plan for the work that we're doing today. Demonstrating innovation and value for clients. I mentioned that bit about acquisition, but clients want this. They want to see that we're doing that stuff. They want to see how their dollar's working hard and that we're doing smart things for them. And that will one, make them sticky with the organisation they work with too. Last bit, again, managing security concerns and protecting your brand. So doing this well is going to protect your brand. Keeping on top of this stuff, putting it in solutions that are strong and secure, etc., that are developed to do that at scale. It's going to ensure that you are protected and you've got the best people keeping an eye on your systems overnight, watching while those things are happening, not having it in a broom cupboard, right? It's really important. I won't go through everything on this slide. I think there's a lot to cover on here. But I just want to touch on a couple of examples. And so you can just see here, if you looked at an example of like efficiency and productivity as a small case. So we've got a manual review by lawyers or paralegals. It's slower, it's costlier, and it can be error prone. We can automate that document review. We can automate legal research. We can do discovery with AI and analytics. We can leverage technology, and it's going to reduce the turnaround time and the potential for error. Again, there's proven studies. There's a lot of support. There's support at a common law level around the use of this technology as well. Talent optimization, tracking workloads and performances. We can see how people are performing because we can track them inside of a system. We can see how many documents they reviewed an hour and how they're going through things as well. It allows us to think about how we resource and do that in a dynamic way. We can see perhaps we need more people to do this review or etc. And the other opportunity there is to improve retention. So if the AI is doing some of that ugly grunt work, it's going to save pain for some people that would normally have to spend time doing that manual work and give them something more engaging and value driven. Last bit before I kind of close is just really some suggested next steps. So if none of it grabbed you, then hopefully there's a few little points at the end I think might be useful. Just have a look at LDI. Go to the website, take a peek, see if it makes any sense for you, right? And if you do like it, and if it does seem like it could be relevant, reward engagement within the practice. If we do a matter and we do it that way, let's encourage someone to do it. What does reward look like? Look at an old project, analyse something. Look at the return on investment using LDI. Don't know how much people like spreadsheets, but I've got an example, and this is purely for illustrative purposes, so please don't hang me on the numbers, right? But again, I think the importance here is just to think about, in this particular scenario, we've got a document review, 10,000 documents. We've got 5 lawyers that we're engaging in this particular, 5 paralegals. We've got a few senior lawyers. And this is what we're doing. We're reviewing all of the documents. We're doing our best to get through it as quickly as we can. We're creating a discovery list, and we're pushing that out. Again, it's not an uncommon exercise. We've got some costs associated with that, and I've sort of looked at that and compared that to what that might look like in an LDI process. And again, in some cases, I've probably been generous. I'd say, for example, the processing and hosting of documents. I know lots of companies would do that for cheaper. But again, I think it's just helpful to get a bit of a sense check. We're talking about they price in gigabyte, in volume-based stuff as well. So it's a different way to think about the construct. There's some consulting time. You need people that have expertise in AI and technology assisted review to support you. So there is a third-party cost involved in doing it. But in this particular scenario, we've only got one paralegal doing document review and one senior lawyer producing the result. And in this case, we've saved 18 days. We've saved close to $15,000 and we've not had to hire 6 new people. That's a really small use case. And there's many more. Now, I don't want to say that it's a silver bullet for every single engagement. Again, I think there's certain parts of the law that maybe don't lend itself to it, but I'd say there's so many things that it can benefit. If you're not spending on technology, you should. I think it's a really important part of what we do. No matter how big or small you are, technology can help you go faster. If you're one practitioner or 50, you should be deploying technology at some level. It should be part of what you do and embedded in your practice. Think about LDI as a way to win work. Maybe it's a way to get in and share something new and some new insight with a client. Maybe it's something that an aspirational client that you didn't think you could win. Maybe try something. You might not have won it anyway, right? So you're at no loss to do anything. Try AI. Try it. Like, press it today, go to ChatGPT, open it up, try something. Do some research. Look up LDI. Throw that in as a word. Just see what you get. See what it tells you. See if you can find some novel use for it. And again, I don't think we should be scared of this technology. I think we should find and refine the ways that we use it. We might not want to put all our client data and everything yet, right? In ChatGPT, we're not going to do that. That's not what I'm suggesting. But finding some uses for you guys in terms of your day-to-day. And also engaging a third party to help. I think it's critical to think about, we don't have to go this alone. This isn't a solo activity. You need to engage people who have expertise in this space as well. And just a mini plug for the website. Again, I make no money from it, or I don't. We make no opportunity from it. But again, legal data intelligence is something that's out there. It's freely available. Go have a look at it today if you wanted to. Take a peek. Let me know if you're interested and if you want to continue the conversation. But again, I'm going to turn over for questions.
Last week, I attended a Let's Go Tech seminar organized by DOJ. So DOJ is actually trying to use tech to help lawyers. So one thing is, this Excel is very daunting, whether you like it or not. If you use the cost plus model to charge your client, so we used to charge like 20% margin. So if cost is that high and we charge it, it's okay. But now suddenly with the AI, the cost goes down. So if you still use the old model, it means we have no business because the price is just beyond the range. Some people, they use AI, so their cost structure is lower, and they still use a 20% margin. The price they offer is much more competitive than us. So AI, that's why I mentioned to you at the beginning of the seminar, PMC will study how AI is going to help us lawyers, because the committee in Law Society is not help the committee members, but help our general members. Of course, we study from the management partner point of view, the business and risk. It's number one. And number two, whether you like it or not, the general counsel in private companies, even the government, they use AI. In other words, your answer, you charge for your advice, have to be better than the AI. Otherwise, why do they have to pay you for something as good as the AI, or even less valuable or worse than the AI answer they got from the computer? So from these two angles, whether from the profitability angle or from the value angle, we have to go AI. But how? As I said at the beginning, we are at the awareness level. Whether or not we go to the action level, of course, we lawyers tend to be very conservative. We have to wait and see. And today, of course, we have invited an expert in this area. You better ask questions, how we take from the awareness level to the action level, how we're going to win in this kind of a step forward. So please ask your questions for free.
Stuart, I missed your last slide. You show your website. Can I just copy it down? Thank you.
This one? Yeah.
Yes, please hold on for maybe
Yeah.
5 seconds.
No,
Thanks.
not my website, but yes. But yeah, take a look.
I think the whole website is fully complimentary, free resources there. We encourage you to take a look at it. Yeah.
I have some questions myself. Of course, when we look at the pains or pain points, we can either look at it from the external or the internal. So I just mentioned some external factors that you can think about. Internal is also a very important area for lawyers, especially for the senior lawyers to consider. In the old age, we used signature and paper-based business model. In other words, we only reserve the power, authority for the partners to sign off our legal advice. So, and also we have the centralized dispatch to photocopy all the paper or the letters, outgoing letters, so that the management partner know whether or not somebody is doing something which is very risky or very dangerous or very irresponsible. But nowadays, we all use emails. Maybe 90% is by email. So whether you use, we don't need to sign off, because in the past, like 20 years ago or 10 years ago, sometimes some management partner just block all the internet capability of our juniors, so they can't go online. But now, I think we cannot do it anymore. Everyone, they can either use the computer in the office or use a mobile device to reach out to their clients. It's something that we have to face, we have to accept. So without signature, without control, and also we call it decentralization. All the computers, all the devices, you cannot photocopy all the letters, outbound letters. So still, how are we going to control this risk?
It's a great question. So I think there's a lot of things to say in terms of what you said there, Philip, but the first bit I'd sort of touch on is digitisation. It's important, right? There's a really great opportunity, and if you're not already doing it, to digitise your practice in some way, shape or form. But I think also, if you think about the nature of what's going on and the way in which people are communicating and the work that we all do on a day-to-day basis, if back in the day, emails perhaps were where the smoking gun might lie, and you know, the hard copy was where we sort of did our formal letters, etc. Maybe that's changed. Maybe that's now the emails are now the formal communication, and maybe the text messages and the WhatsApp so there's a change that's happening as well. So if all you are doing is looking at the hard copy, and even maybe some cases the emails, maybe you're missing some context too. Maybe there's some opportunity there to get further down the way on some of those things as well. So looking at the way in which there might actually be avenues and opportunities to investigate a particular issue and find some more information and context, and maybe find something that's interesting as part of that as well. But again, I don't know if that answers it, Philip, but that would be something I'd say.
So apart from email, now you still mentioned WhatsApp and WeChat. And you know, Hong Kong is a very special place. We have a lot of Chinese clients.
Yes.
They use WeChat. So for local businessmen, they use WhatsApp. They don't read email. So apart from email, I just mentioned in our question, and we have another social media, WeChat and WhatsApp as well. And these are posing real risk to lawyers.
It's a huge risk, right? The sort of the blurring of personal and professional is significant. And it won't surprise you, but even at control risk, we just get instruction. We get sort of, hey, can you guys be engaged for this thing via a WhatsApp or via a WeChat in some cases in mainland China. So, you know, is that binding? Is it actually a binding engagement in that particular scenario if they've given you that? We haven't had to test that yet. Touch wood, thankfully, that's been good. But I think the point I think I would make is that is absolutely what is happening in the world today, that there is this big change and a move towards information being stored not just in the traditional ways that we've seen it, but in these other new applications. And I won't sort of crystal ball gaze too much, but there are examples now of like, does a thumbs up, does an emoji equal agreement? Like, is that I've signed off on that, or does that mean just think it's a good idea? Does that mean I like what you said? Like, what does that actually mean? So there's now interpretation of the things that are happening in these, modern platforms in terms of what it actually means from a legal standpoint. So again, I think like this stuff, I think there's an opportunity there to use this technology, but I also think it allows us to go deeper. Maybe we understand a bit more context and things that we didn't before, where maybe in the hard copy world we didn't see all those things. Like, it was only what was put on the file that was sort of kept as well. So now we can investigate more meaningfully and perhaps find and uncover some of those issues as well. So we can help our clients more meaningfully as well in some of those, because we've got a full picture. If we do get their devices, if we are able to get consent as part of that too.
So definitely, if you draft a contract, because whenever there's a problem, the messages in WeChat and WhatsApp will be produced by your client to law society for disciplinary action or to the court for legal action. Sometimes lawyers just think what we're going to say in the WeChat not important. And one day we want to retrieve the WeChat messages and they're all gone. After a while, you can't retrieve anymore. So one important tip is for you to, whenever you draft a contract, we have to put in an entire agreement clause. Everything we say outside this agreement is gone, irrelevant. So this is important. So there are so many ways. I don't know whether LDI can really help us. This is, as I said, is reality. So we cannot just use email or use letter, hard copy to send to client. Although for litigation lawyer, of course, you need an engagement. Is going to sign, but for everything before the engagement or even after engagement, you still use whatever email, WhatsApp, and WeChat to communicate with client. And some of them is important. And at the Let's Go Tech seminar I attended, and people just say whatever is sent through WhatsApp is not safe. It's not safe. You think they're kryptonized? No, people can see it.
Yeah, and I mean, even in what we do on the digital forensic side of our business, we do things where we can break into a phone. It's not. This is not sort of science fiction. This is sort of science fact. We do this on a regular basis. We've got technology that where we don't have credentials to a phone, we're able to do that. Obviously, we don't want to do that. We want to operate with consent, etc. But in certain scenarios, depending upon the allegations, that can happen. So you're right. There are opportunities to get that back. It's not a perfect science, that sort of stuff. But I think the whole thing with technology is both a blessing and a curse. I think that I've touched on the positive and the blessing side. I think Philip's hitting on a few really interesting notes around the challenges of doing it. But also, I think that the point to make is we're all on the journey together. The roller coaster goes up and goes down, but I think we can't ignore it. I think that would be the one bit I would say is that engagement with the technology, looking at it as an opportunity to win, notwithstanding the potential pain and downside. And again, that's where you need support and help around that work. I think there's plenty of people out there, myself and others included in the industry, that can support you guys in terms of this work. Thinking about the pitfalls of an AI system. I haven't spent time on this today, but there's open and closed, there's hallucinations, there's lots of things that exist out there. Some of them are really manageable, just depends on what you're looking to do. Some of them you shouldn't be concerned about, some of them you should. So it's a bit of a depends question, but I think it's important to engage third parties on this, but it's also important to not go, it's too hard and too scary and not do it, because I think you run the risk of finding yourself in a situation where others win that work, or you find yourself priced out of an engagement as well. And I think that's a shame, when in actual fact, you might have the opportunity to win more things as well by engaging in technology and employing it in a meaningful way.
So, and also AI doesn't really help you with research. Research is not the best part of AI. So you still use our lawyers to do research is safer. But for AI, they can help you with many, many tasks. Recently, I have a old-fashioned book. It's written by somebody from UK after the Second World War. So all the languages very difficult to read. So, and then what I do is this is just a book. I've fill it into AI, use modern language, tell me what it's about.
Yeah.
It's much easier, and then you get the main points. And then when you read the book again, and then you find it easier to understand. Otherwise, it's so hard. Same for Chinese. Sometimes you have the very old Chinese, and you don't understand what it means. And then you just fit into some AI model in China, and they tell you the modern language meaning. This is very helpful.
Yeah.
Translation.
Transcription is a really big opportunity as well, of just being able to do that. Yeah.
So, and also when you do research, and after you have done your research, you use AI to counter check whether or not there's anything that you have left. This is also very useful. So many, of course, for the many law firms, maybe you think it's too small. If you really need AI, of course, you can write to law society, because a law society is just a central organization for all lawyers within legal profession, even though each law firm is very small. If all people really need something, and then we can try to use a purchase power to buy for you, and then you charge you back. So this is a model that many AI companies, if you have more subscribers, the unit rate is low.
That's right.
If you only have few people, the unit rate is high. So if we use law society on behalf of 11,000 people, and then definitely the unit rate is low. So this is one way, and we have Wendy with us today. So eventually it's your money. Of course, we'll charge you back. And then if you go buy yourself, it's too expensive. It's out of the question. But we buy together. This is about purchase. This is easier. Many organizations, many associations, even chambers, they use this kind of strategy. So everybody get a benefit, all win-win, because the supplier get more customers, and the user get it cheaper and more good services, and the association or chamber, they can provide services. So this is something, if you are really interested, and you can write by email or WhatsApp, WeChat, whatever, or hot letter to Law Society Attention General, Secretary General, and she, of course, is the head of Law Society, and then she will then discuss. As I said, our job, even me in my capacity as the chairman of PMC, is going to help you. So this is something, and so I want to hear some questions from you guys. And this is a show to our visitor, our guest, that Hong Kong people are active, proactive too. Please.
Thank you. Hi, Mr. Wong and Mr. Hall. I'm just a bit curious. My name is Sarah, and I'm a bit curious about how you could actually use LDI to pitch. Because if you try AI and give them similar keywords for a particular client, won't all the law firms actually use the same kind of keywords, and won't the template all be the same? So what kind of value add would it be if we use LDI? Thank you.
Good question. So it doesn't go into the specifics of like use keywords or this is the information to use. What it does do is say you could use AI in this particular way to reduce the population during a review exercise, or you could use technology that could group things together to cross-compare clauses, right? So it'll talk about the use. It won't pin you to just use that or just do that flow. So it's not a guide. It's not a how-to. Does that make sense? And so that's where engagement with people like myself or others can help with that, right? So it's like, I think we could, is there an opportunity to use AI or something in this particular case? How might we go about doing that? That's a good question, because then we can help and we can put it together in a framework. And so might be preparing a quote. If we did this, what would that look like? How much would that cost? Could we come up with a per document price in that particular scenario for document review? Kind of revolutionary, maybe, maybe not. But again, that could be quite compelling, right? As opposed to an hourly rate. There's an idea.
Okay, thank you.
Even with AI, you still need people.
That's right.
So even you have two people using the same AI is just an enhancement tool to help you enhance the answer. So you still distinguish somebody. One thing, if somebody who doesn't use AI, that will be the loser, definitely. Two people using the same AI model, it doesn't mean the answer are the same. The person who is good at AI will be the winner, enhance. So that's why we have to use AI, and with AI smartly. And that's why we do not just work hard, we work smart. We used to charge clients by time, but time itself is now not a good yardstick because AI can do it faster. And if you still charge client by time based on menu, you're going to lose your business because people do the same job, just like translation, for example. If you see, okay, I'm going to translate a document from English to Chinese, I charge you like $20,000 and I need 1 week. Definitely, you lose your business. Somebody else, okay, only 5,000, maybe 1 day. Reality. So you do not just outsource the translation work to the external professional translator anymore. They are going to lose business. They are gone because AI can do the work better and faster and cheaper. So for lawyers, we cannot step into the same position.
I'd add one thing to that. I agree with pretty much everything Philip said. One amendment I would make to that, so using the translation example though, is I think AI will get you to a certain point, but if you need it perfectly done, then you may need to pay somebody at the end for that one document that's super important, right? As opposed to paying them for 50 documents that are slightly irrelevant, right? So it'll get you to that point of removing those 49 and only getting into that final one, that one to focus on. And maybe in that scenario, you might want to get it certified. And so that I think AI is not that at that point to be able to do that to that level of kind of quality.
And just add to that, right? Using LDI to pitch is also what Stuart was saying, doing more with less, right? So pretty much LDI or digitization or AI is actually leveling up the playing field of smaller scale law firm to be now on a playing field that can be, before was only preserved for larger practice. So I think that's another angle to look at it as well.
Yeah, I'd go further on that as well. I think sometimes being small can actually be a really big advantage. And I'll give you an example because I've worked for big places. Sometimes it can be hard to leverage things because there's a preferred or a standardized workflow or a way to do things. And so challenging that or doing something different can be hard. It can be hard to change course in those organizations. Talking about a financial institution, it'd be really hard to change their process and practice, right? So deploying something like this is going to take a long time. Whereas if you're a single or smaller group, you can do it quickly. You can be agile, you can make a decision really quickly. And you can get the same benefits, and if not more benefits, by virtue of being able to, again, win those engagements and do those things faster. Make a decision a lot faster. So it's actually an opportunity. It doesn't have to be a downside.
Okay, now I don't know whether you have questions. If none, and then we thank Stuart for today's contribution.